The dinner invitation came on a Tuesday. I remember because I was in the middle of a client call when my mother-in-law's name lit up my phone. I let it go to voicemail. I always let it go to voicemail. Not out of rudeness, out of self-preservation. Vivienne had a way of framing things that made you feel like you were agreeing to something before you even realised you'd said yes. The voicemail was 43 seconds long. I know because I played it 3 times. Sweetheart, just a reminder that Saturday is the anniversary dinner. We're doing it at the house this year. Formal. Roland's sister is flying in from Phoenix. I need a headcount by Thursday, so just let Bryce know if things work out. If things work out. If things work out. I stood in my kitchen for a long moment after that, phone face down on the counter, staring at the window above the sink. Outside, the November sky was the colour of old dishwater. The neighbour's kid was riding a bike in circles in the driveway across the street. I had been married to Bryce for 6 years. 6 years of holidays where I was the footnote. 6 years of family portraits where I stood slightly to the left, slightly behind, as though I'd wandered into the frame by accident. 6 years of Vivienne saying things like, if things work out instead of my name. My name is Darcy. I have a name. I've had it for 31 years. I went to the dinner. I don't know why I went. Bryce didn't ask me to. He mentioned it the way you've mentioned a dentist appointment. Something that exists on the calendar, something you endure. He said, Mum's doing Saturday dinner, and I said, I know, and that was the conversation. I told myself I went because it was important to try, because you don't just stop showing up. Because 6 years is 6 years and you carry that. But if I'm honest, and I'm trying to be honest now, finally, I think I went because I wanted to see if it would be different. It never was, but I kept checking. The way you press on a bruise to confirm it still hurts. Vivienne's house was 40 minutes north, up past the reservoir in one of those neighbourhoods where every lawn looks like it's maintained by the same company, and every driveway has at least one car that costs more than my first apartment. She'd lived there since before Bryce was born. The house smelled like potpourri and something older underneath it, wood polish maybe, or time. I changed 3 times before we left. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Maybe because it's embarrassing and embarrassing things are the truest things. I wanted to look right. Whatever right meant to them. I settled on a navy wrap dress that my friend Petra said made me look like I owned a sailboat. I took that as a compliment. There were 11 people at the table. Vivienne sat at the head, Roland. Bryce's father, quiet, always slightly apologetic, sat at the opposite end and mostly studied his plate. Bryce's sister, Fiona, had flown in from Phoenix with her husband and their 2 teenagers who were on their phones under the table and didn't look up for most of the meal. Bryce's aunt and uncle from the other side. A couple I didn't recognise who Vivienne introduced as dear friends and whose names I immediately forgot. And me. I was seated at the corner. Not at the corner like an honour. At the corner, like a routing decision, the chair was slightly shorter than the others. I noticed it when I sat down and my chin was 2 inches lower than everyone else's, and I had to decide whether to say something or just be shorter for the evening. I chose shorter. I always chose quieter. That was my pattern. The first hour was fine, the way that things are fine when nothing has happened yet. Fiona talked about her renovation, the kitchen, mainly. They'd done a full gut renovation and replaced the counters with quartzite, and Vivienne said quartzite is so much better than marble. Marble is so trendy in a way that seemed directed at me, though I had granite counters and had never claimed otherwise. I ate my salad. I asked Roland about his woodworking, because Roland did woodworking and no one else ever asked him about it. He brightened a little. He'd made a cutting board for a neighbour's Christmas gift. Cherry wood. Hand-finished. It took him 3 weekends. I told him that was beautiful and I meant it, and Vivienne turned her attention back to Fiona. Then the photo happened. It was Fiona who brought the camera out. One of those nice ones, a mirrorless, a real camera, not a phone. She said she wanted to get a good one this year, something for the mantle, something for the holidays. Vivienne clapped her hands like a child and said yes. Let's, while we're all together. People started moving. Chairs scraped. The teenagers put their phones down for the first time. Roland stood up and adjusted his collar, and someone turned on the lamp in the corner to fix the lighting. I stood up too. Vivian touched my arm. It was a light touch, the kind that looks like nothing. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "I was thinking just family for this one. To keep it simple." I looked at her. "It's for the mantle," she said. "You know how it is." I did not move for a moment. I was aware of Bryce across the room watching me. I was aware of Fiona adjusting something on the camera. I was aware that everyone in the room had heard what Vivienne said and was now performing a kind of aggressive normalcy, refilling glasses, adjusting napkins, pretending the air hadn't changed. "Sure," I said. I sat back down. I sat in my corner chair that was 2 inches shorter than the others, and I ate the rest of my salad, and I listened to the sound of my husband's family arranging themselves for a photograph that I was not in. I heard Fiona counting down. I heard Vivienne laugh at something. I heard the click. Bryce came back to the table and sat down and picked up his fork and said nothing. I didn't say anything either. Not then. It was during the main course that Fiona mentioned the lake house. "I was thinking," she said, cutting her chicken, "that we could do the 4th there this year. All of us, like we used to." Vivienne lit up. "I would love that. The kids are old enough now to actually remember it." Roland said, "The dock needs work." "Roland, it always needs work," Vivienne said, in the tone she used when he said something inconvenient. Fiona said we could stay the whole week, make it a real thing. And Bryce said, "Yeah, that sounds great." No one looked at me. I want to be very clear about something. I was not invisible by accident. Invisibility is something that gets built over time, brick by brick. Every holiday where my dietary restriction was forgotten. Every group text that got created without me in it. Every plan made and then mentioned to me sideways after the fact, as though I were a logistical consideration rather than a person. You don't stumble into that. Someone builds it. I had spent 6 years trying to take bricks down. I brought food to dinners no one asked me to bring. I'd send birthday cards on time every year, even to the extended family. I'd asked questions and listened to the answers and tried to find genuine interest in things that weren't naturally interesting to me. I tried. What I had not done, what I had been very careful not to do, was talk about my work. This is the part I need to explain, because it matters. When Bryce and I got married, I was a junior project manager at a commercial real estate development firm. Nobody's dinner party topic. Not exciting. Bryce's family was mostly in finance and medicine, and commercial real estate development to them sounded like something you admitted if pressed, but didn't lead with. I didn't lead with it. What I also didn't mention, ever, to any of them, was that I had left that company 3 years ago to launch my own, a boutique development consultancy. 3 employees, including me. We specialised in adaptive reuse projects, turning underused commercial buildings into mixed-use housing, which was, in the current housing market, something cities were paying very good money to make happen. The company was called Ridgeway Development Consulting. It had a website that I'd never mentioned to anyone in Bryce's family. It had 4 active contracts. It had a business account that I will not give you the exact balance of, but I will tell you that it had more zeros in it than I thought it would at 31. And it had a separate personal investment account, retirement funds, a brokerage account, some real estate I'd acquired quietly over the years. That totalled, at last count, something in the neighbourhood of $4 million. I drove a 7-year-old Subaru. I'm not saying that to be cute. I'm saying it because perception matters. Vivian's family made assumptions based on what they could see. They could see a woman in a navy wrap dress sitting in a short corner chair, not in the photo. They could not see anything else. Bryce knew some of it. He knew I'd started the company. He did not know the full financial picture. We had kept our finances mostly separate since the beginning. His suggestion originally, which I'd agreed to and quietly come to be grateful for. I had not volunteered information he hadn't asked for. I stayed through dessert, not because I wanted to, because leaving early would have made it a thing, and I was tired of things, tired of being the one who made gatherings awkward by having feelings. So I ate the pumpkin tart that Fiona brought and I said it was good. It was good, and I helped clear the plates without being asked, and Vivienne said to Fiona, not to me. She's helpful, isn't she? And I put the plate in the sink and stared at the window above it for a moment. Outside was dark by then. My reflection looked back at me. I was quiet on the drive home. Bryce tried once, "You okay?" And I said yes, and he accepted that. And we drove the rest of the 40 minutes through the reservoir neighbourhood and back into our part of the city in silence. When we got home, I went upstairs. I sat on the edge of the bed. I thought about the photo. I thought about while we're all together. I thought about 6 years of July 4, some Christmas dinners, and Easter brunches, and all the ways a person can be told, without being told, that they don't quite belong somewhere. Then I thought about the property. There is a thing that happens when you work in real estate long enough. You start to see land differently. You drive past a building and you're not thinking about what it is. You're thinking about what it could be. You think about entitlements and zoning and square footage and comp values. It becomes reflexive. Bryce's family had a lake house. What they did not know, what no one knew, because it was not their business to know, was that 14 months ago I had purchased the parcel of land directly adjacent to that lake house. 3 acres, with 60 feet of water frontage. The previous owner was an elderly man who'd inherited it from his parents and never built on it and had finally decided, at 82, that he didn't want to deal with the property taxes anymore. He sold it for well under market because he wanted a quick close and I had offered cash. The deed was in my name only, Darcy Clements Ashworth, which is a name that belongs entirely to me. I had been planning to develop it eventually, or sell it when the market was right. It had appreciated significantly since I purchased it. It was, objectively, a very good piece of land. I had never mentioned it to Bryce. Not out of malice. I want to be clear about that too. I had not bought it to win something. I had bought it because it was a sound investment, and I was in the business of sound investment. But that night, sitting on the edge of my bed in my navy wrap dress, listening to Bryce wash his face in the bathroom down the hall, I thought about that land for a long time. I made a decision that night, not a dramatic one, just a quiet one, the way I made most of my decisions. I was done trying, not done in a fire and brimstone way, not done in a way that required a scene or a confrontation or anything that Vivienne could point to later and say, just done in a private, permanent way. Done trying to take down bricks. Done attending dinners where I would be shorter. Done waiting for my name to mean something to people who had decided it didn't. I called Petra the next morning. Petra was one of my 2 business partners and also my closest friend. Which is an unusual overlap, but it works for us because we're both blunt and we both like good coffee and we've been through enough together to skip the preamble. "I think I'm leaving," I said. "I know," she said. She'd known for a while, she told me. I said I didn't want to talk about Bryce. Not yet. She said okay. I said I needed to think about some things. She said she'd send me the financials from the Dorchester Street project, so I had something to do with my hands. That's how she is. It's useful. The month after the dinner was quiet. Bryce and I moved through our shared life like 2 pieces of furniture arranged for function rather than comfort. He went to work. I went to work. We ate dinner together on the nights when the timing worked out. We talked about normal things. We did not talk about the photo or about while we're all together or about the lake house. In December, Fiona texted the family group chat. I was in this one, added sometime after we got married, which I'd always found quietly absurd, to say that she'd gotten the photos developed and framed and that everyone's looked beautiful. She sent a preview, 7 people arranged on the stairs of Vivienne's house. The light from the lamp in the corner. Vivienne in the centre. Bryce smiling in a way he didn't usually smile. I was not there, obviously. I knew I wouldn't be. Still, I stared at the photo for longer than I needed to. Then I closed the app and opened the folder on my laptop where I kept the Ridgeway documents. I opened the file for the lakefront parcel. I had gotten an inquiry that week from a boutique hotel developer, not someone I'd approached, someone who'd found me through an industry contact, who wanted to explore the lot for a small-scale hospitality project, 12 to 16 rooms, sustainable design, the kind of thing that travel publications like to write about. They were prepared to move quickly. They had a number in mind that made me sit very still for a moment when I read it. I asked Petra to review the terms. She called me an hour later and said, "Darcy, Darcy." I said, "I know." She said, "Do you want to sell it?" I thought about the lake. I thought about the dock that always needs work. I thought about Vivian's hand on my arm, that light touch that looked like nothing. "Not yet," I said. "I filed for divorce in February. I hired an attorney named Frances, older woman, silver braid, no-nonsense shoes, the kind of person who has seen everything and is no longer surprised by any of it. And I walked her through the financial picture over the course of 2 meetings. She listened without interrupting, which I respected. When I finished, she looked at her notes for a moment and then looked at me. "You've been quite private," she said. "Yes," I said. "That's not a criticism," she said. I said I knew. Bryce's reaction to the divorce papers was not what I expected. I had braced for anger, or for hurt, or for the particular kind of wounded disbelief that people perform when they've been surprised by a consequence they probably should have seen coming. What I got instead was a kind of deflation. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time. He said, "Is this about the dinner?" I said, "It's about 6 years." He nodded slowly. He didn't argue. I think, on some level, he had known too. What he didn't know, what became clear over the next several weeks as the financial disclosures made their way through the process, was the scope of it. The business, the investment accounts, the properties, plural. Frances laid it out carefully, as required. I watched Bryce read through the documents. I watched his expression move through several things it couldn't quite decide between. At one point, he looked up and said, "The lakefront lot." "Yes," I said. "Next to my parents' lake house." "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. "How long have you owned that?" 14 months, I said. He put the papers down. I don't know what he said to Vivienne. I was not there for that conversation. I can only tell you what happened after. About 3 weeks after the disclosure documents went out, Petra forwarded me a screenshot. Someone had posted a real estate listing on a local community Facebook group, one of those neighbourhood pages where people sell furniture and complain about parking, and the listing was for the lake house. Vivienne and Roland's lake house. Listed at a price that suggested some urgency. Petra wrote, "They're trying to sell before the hotel deal goes public and drives up your land value even more." I stared at the screenshot for a long time. They had not known until the disclosure that I owned the adjacent lot. They had not known what it was worth. They had not known about the hotel inquiry. They had not known about any of it. All they had known was that I was the woman in the short corner chair who wasn't in the photo. What I felt, looking at that screenshot, was not triumph. I want to be precise about this. It wasn't vindication either, exactly. It was something quieter. Something closer to the feeling you get when you've been holding something heavy for a very long time, and you finally set it down, and your arms are sore. But you're also just lighter. I did not respond to the listing. I called Frances and told her I was ready to proceed with the hotel developer. She said she'd set up the meeting. I said I'd like to keep the terms private until closing if possible. She said she could manage that. Then I texted Petra, "Dinner Friday." She sent back a gif of someone doing a very enthusiastic thumbs up. The divorce was finalised in June. No children, no shared real estate, limited shared accounts. It moved as cleanly as these things can move. Frances said I was one of her more organised clients. I took that as the highest compliment. I was not present when Fiona came to visit Vivienne that summer. I know she came because my attorney received a letter from Vivienne's personal email, not through any legal channel, just a direct email to Frances's office, asking if there was any possibility of revisiting the lakefront situation given its sentimental value to the family. Frances called to tell me. I could hear her trying very hard not to laugh. I said, "Tell them I'll think about it." I did not think about it. The hotel project broke ground in September. It was written up in a regional architecture magazine, which I happened to see shared in a Facebook group. The write-up mentioned the adjacent property, my development consultancy, my name in print. And it was the first time in 7 years of knowing Bryce's family that my name appeared in any context that connected to them. It had my name on it. It had always had my name on it. I read the article on my phone on a Tuesday morning, sitting in my kitchen, coffee going warm in the mug beside me. The November sky outside was the colour of old dishwater again. A year had turned almost exactly. The neighbour's kid was gone. His family had moved in August, and the young couple had bought the house and planted something in the front yard that I didn't know the name of, but it was doing well. I put my phone down. I thought about the corner chair. I thought about the 43 seconds of voicemail. I thought about Petra, who was probably already at the office, who would text me in about 20 minutes, asking if I'd seen the article. I thought about what it means to be invisible. There's a version of this story where the lesson is about revenge, about patience and strategy and playing a long game. I know that's the version some people want. I understand the appeal. There's something satisfying about the shape of it, the symmetry, the idea that someone who was treated badly eventually got to watch the people who treated her badly reckon with what they'd done. But that's not quite what this is. The land was not a weapon. The business was not a trap. I had not made a single decision in my professional life in order to impress or punish anyone in Bryce's family. I had made them because they were sound decisions, because I was good at my work, because I found something I was capable of, and I had chased it quietly and seriously for years. The invisibility they created, the corner chair, the group texts, the photos on the mantle, that was theirs. I didn't manufacture it, and I didn't deserve it, and eventually I stopped trying to argue with it. What I did instead was keep building, just outside their line of sight, where no one was watching, where there was no performance required, where I didn't have to be 2 inches shorter than everyone else. Petra texted at 9:17. Have you seen the article? I texted back. Yes, she wrote. Your name is spelled right, and everything. I laughed out loud, alone in my kitchen, at 9:17 on a Tuesday in November. That's the thing about being invisible for a long time. When you finally become visible, on your own terms, in your own name, for work you actually did, it's not a dramatic reveal. It doesn't feel like the lights coming up on a stage. It just feels like being known. It feels like, of course, it feels like something that was always true, finally making its way to the surface. It feels like a name that was always there, just waiting for someone to read it. Mine is Darcy, and the title has always had my name on it. I thought a lot about what I would tell someone who's sitting where I was sitting 6 years ago, in the corner chair that was 2 inches shorter than everyone else's, eating quietly, deciding whether to say something or just be smaller for the evening. I'd tell them this: the way people treat you when they think you have nothing is exactly the information you need, not to punish them with later, just to see clearly. Vivienne wasn't cruel in a dramatic way. She never raised her voice. She used light touches and soft words and polite exclusions. But what she was doing consistently over years was telling me what I was worth to her. I just kept arguing with the answer. That's the thing I had to stop doing. Arguing with what people had already decided. I spent so much energy trying to renegotiate my place at a table that had already been set without me. And the whole time I was doing that, trying, adjusting, showing up smaller so nobody would feel inconvenienced by my presence, I was also, separately, building something real. Those two things were happening at the same time, the shrinking and the building. I just hadn't connected them yet. What I understand now is that dignity is not something other people grant you. Vivienne could not give it to me, and she could not take it away. She could seat me in a short chair and leave me out of the photo and say if things work out instead of my name, and none of that changed what was actually true about me. It only changed what she could see, and honestly, that was her loss, not mine. She looked at a woman in a navy dress and saw a footnote. She missed everything else. Petra used to say that the best work you'll ever do is the work nobody's watching. I didn't fully understand that when she first said it. I do now. The lakefront parcel, the Dorchester Street project. Which way? None of it was built for an audience. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone in that house. I was just doing the work because the work mattered and I was good at it. And that was enough. The fact that it eventually became visible, that my name ended up in print in a way that connected back to people who had never bothered to learn it. That wasn't something I planned. It was just what happens when you keep building long enough. There's a version of me that stayed, that kept attending the dinners and adjusting and hoping. That woman would have been very tired by now. I think about her sometimes, not with judgment, just with recognition. She was trying so hard. She deserves someone to tell her earlier, you don't have to earn a seat at a table that was never really yours. You can just go build your own. Frances told me once, very matter-of-factly, that I was one of her more organised clients. I think what she meant was that I had been paying attention to my work, to my finances, to what I actually wanted, even when I was simultaneously trying to manage someone else's idea of who I should be. Those things can coexist. The paying attention and the trying. Eventually, though, you have to choose which one to give more of yourself to. I chose the paying attention. My name is Darcy. The deed has always had my name on it. That part was never in question.